My wife spent my savings on a vacation while I worked double shifts, so I took everything and disappeared, leaving her life in chaos. I'm a 34-year-old guy. And for years, I believed that hard work was the key to a happy marriage, not flowers. Not grand romantic gestures, just showing up every single day and doing what needed to be done. That's how I was raised. My dad worked in construction until his back gave out, and my mom cleaned houses 6 days a week. So, when I met Megan, this beautiful, sharp, upper-middle-class girl in a night class I was taking after work, it felt like winning the lottery. She told me she admired my work ethic, said it reminded her of her grandfather. We were total opposites. Her nails were always perfect, and I had permanent grease under mine. But somehow it clicked. Megan had a way of making me feel like I was someone worth building a life with. We got married after 2 years of dating, and from the start, I took it on myself to be the provider at one point. I was doing 2 jobs: warehouse supervisor during the day and overnight inventory at a chain store. I'd come home smelling like sweat and cardboard, and she'd kiss me on the cheek and say, "You're building our dream, babe." That dream was a little house outside the city, and maybe a baby in the next year or two. She said she didn't mind staying home, said homemaking was her way of contributing, and I trusted that. She handled the bills, the budgeting, the grocery shopping. I never questioned it. I figured she had it covered while I focused on bringing in the money. Looking back, I was exhausted but content. I truly believed we were a team, that all those nights I came home dead on my feet were adding up to something beautiful. But the truth, I was the only one building it. I started noticing little things first, stuff that didn't seem important at the time, but in hindsight were the first real cracks. Megan stopped asking about my day, not in a malicious way, just indifference. I'd come home after a 16-hour shift, dead tired, and she'd be scrolling on her phone, half listening, nodding absently. It's great, babe. While I was telling her how I nearly twisted my ankle unloading pallets. She started going out more too. It's just brunch with the girls, she'd say. Or I need some me time, babe. You're always working and I'm stuck in this apartment all day. I couldn't argue with that. She deserved breaks too. But the frequency picked up. Once a week turned to 3. Brunches became spa days. Sometimes she didn't even come home until after midnight. She always had some excuse. Someone's car broke down, a girl's night ran late, or she lost track of time. I wanted to believe her. One night, half asleep on the couch, I overheard her on the phone with a friend. She laughed and said, "He's working himself into the ground again. Poor guy, too tired to even talk." Her tone wasn't cruel, but it wasn't loving either. Like I was some well-meaning idiot whose exhaustion was more amusing than admirable. I asked her about it later. She smiled and brushed it off. "You're overthinking. You're just tired." And maybe I was. Maybe all the hours were messing with my head. Still, something in her tone. It stayed with me. When I suggested we start budgeting together just to keep things balanced, she waved it off. "That stuff stresses you out, babe. Let me handle it. You've got enough on your plate." And I agreed. Because I trusted her, God. I wish I hadn't. It happened on a random Thursday night. I was sitting at the kitchen table waiting for Megan to get home from another girl's dinner. When I logged into our bank account to check the balance, I'd been working so many extra hours lately that I wanted to see how close we were to hitting our down payment goal. But when the screen loaded, my stomach dropped. The number staring back at me wasn't what it should have been. It was almost half. At first, I thought it was a mistake. Be a bill cleared twice or a payment got processed wrong. I refreshed the page, checked again. Still wrong. I scrolled through the transactions. There were withdrawals I didn't recognize, and charges from luxury stores I'd never even heard of. High-end boutiques, salon appointments, and what really caught my eye, 2 separate payments to an airline company. My chest tightened. When Megan got home, laughing and smelling faintly of expensive perfume, I tried to sound calm. "Hey, did you move some money out of savings?" Didn't even flinch. "Oh yeah. Just took care of a few things, some of my credit card bills and a deposit for something special."
Ow.
"Don't stress about it, okay? Something special?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. "Yeah, for us," she said, smiling. "You'll see. Just trust me." Her tone was light, but her eyes darted away for a second too long. I wanted to believe her, really did. But that night, lying in bed next to her while she scrolled through her phone, I felt this pit in my stomach. When she fell asleep, I went back to the kitchen, laptop open, and started checking every statement from the past few months. Now that's when I saw it, the slow, steady drain. Something wasn't adding up. I was finally done pretending it was fine. It was a Sunday afternoon. I was on my lunch break, hunched over a plastic container of reheated leftovers in the warehouse break room when my phone buzzed. A buddy from high school had tagged me in a post. I tapped the notification without thinking, then froze. There she was, Megan, in a bikini I'd never seen before, lounging poolside with a cocktail in one hand and her other arm wrapped around one of her friends. A caption read, "Cabo vibes with my girls. Ma hashtag a much deserved hashtag a luxury retreat." I just stared at the screen. My first thought wasn't even anger, it was confusion. She'd told me she was at her sister's for a mental health weekend, said she needed time to reset, to breathe. I'd packed her bag that morning, watched her kiss me on the cheek, eyes full of concern, saying, "Please don't worry about me, okay?" And now she was sipping mojitos oceanside while I scraped together another double shift to keep the lights on. I refreshed her page. More pictures, loaded sunset dinners, champagne toasts, spa selfies. She hadn't just gone behind my back. She'd celebrated it. I couldn't breathe. The break room felt like it was closing in on me. My hands shook as I zoomed in on each post, scanning for any clue that might justify it. But there was nothing. Just laughter, joy, expensive sunglasses, and infinity pools. I went to our messages and typed, "Cabo."
Really?
She didn't reply, but the message turned red. That night she called and said, "Babe, I meant to tell you." It was last minute. Michelle surprised us. I didn't respond. I just hung up. That was the first time I felt it, not just disappointment or suspicion, but betrayal. And deep down, I knew this was just the beginning. After that call, something inside me shifted. I didn't yell. I didn't argue. I just went quiet. Quiet enough for Megan to think the storm had passed. But really, I was just getting still enough to listen, to watch. Because if there's one thing working in a warehouse teaches you, it's that people get sloppy when they think no one's watching. That week, I made a private folder on my laptop and started collecting everything. Bank statements, credit card charges, Venmo transfers. I traced the first signs of Megan's spending spree back nearly 7 months, right around when I picked up my second job. Thousands on boutique shopping sites. A new iPhone she never told me about. And more flights. Vegas, Miami, New Orleans. When I checked her phone records, I noticed a number that kept popping up: late-night calls, hours long, not saved in her contacts. I looked it up, burner app. I didn't know whether to be more furious or heartbroken. I thought I was saving for our future. Turns out I was just financing her escape to make sure I wasn't crazy. I printed it all, created timelines, labeled every charge with screenshots, dates, and locations. It felt surreal, like building a case against someone I loved. Then I remembered something: our house fund. I checked with the realtor we'd been working with to see if any new listings were available. She was confused, said Megan had pulled out of the process weeks ago, told her we were holding off indefinitely. Megan never mentioned that, not once. That night, while she was out getting dinner with old college friends, sat at the table alone, flipping through a manila folder full of receipts and betrayal. And for the first time since we got married, I wasn't sad. I was planning. A few days later, I made an appointment during my lunch break. I told Megan I had a mandatory warehouse meeting, which wasn't entirely a lie. I just didn't tell her the meeting was with a lawyer downtown. I laid everything out on his desk, the folders, the screenshots, the account statements. He didn't even flinch, just nodded, occasionally underlining something with his pen. After an hour, he looked up and said, "This isn't just financial mismanagement. If we can prove she used joint funds deceptively or even forged anything, you may not owe her a cent. If this goes to divorce court," I blinked, "forged." He pointed to the loan documents buried in my printouts when I hadn't looked at closely. It had my name typed on it, but not my signature. The penmanship was close. Not exact, but close. She'd taken out a $15,000 personal loan using my name and social. And I hadn't signed anything. I felt sick. That's when he said something else. something I hadn't even considered. Is the lease under your name or hers? I pulled it up. My name, just mine. Megan had never been added. Not officially. He leaned back. Then if you leave, she can't legally stay, not without your permission. It hit me all at once. The power I didn't even realize I had. I could vanish. I could remove her from the life she took for granted. No confrontation. No fireworks. Just gone. When I got home that night, Megan was in the bath, humming to some chill playlist on her phone. Sipping wine like nothing had changed, I kissed her forehead and told her I'd picked up some extra overnight shifts. She smiled lazily and said, "My hard-working man." She had no idea. She thought I was just tired, but I was finally wide awake. From that night forward, I stopped living like a husband and started moving like a ghost. I opened a new bank account under just my name, rerouted my direct deposits. It took 2 weeks, but Megan didn't notice. She never checked the details as long as the credit card kept working. I told her the warehouse was updating payroll systems. She shrugged and went back to planning her girls' cruise in July, every night. While she watched Netflix or soaked in the bath, I moved small things one drawer at a time. My passport, my high school yearbooks, the old pocket knife my dad gave me, tools from the garage. Nothing big enough to draw attention. But piece by piece, I emptied the life I'd built in that apartment. Found a cheap storage unit on the outskirts of town and paid 6 months up front. The guy didn't ask questions when I told him I was clearing out old clutter. That unit became my bunker, my exit door. I also signed a lease on a furnished studio across town. Paid in cash up front through a side contractor job I took over weekends. Again, Megan didn't ask where I was. I told her I was helping a buddy renovate his place. She said, "That's sweet of you, babe," without looking up from her phone. What hit me most wasn't the betrayal anymore. It was how easy it was to disappear right under her nose. The saddest part, I don't think she missed me. Not the real me. Just the version of me who worked, paid, and stayed quiet. One night, I stood in our bedroom doorway, watching her sleep, peaceful, completely unaware and all. I could think was you've got no idea what's coming next. It was a Friday night, technically my night off. Though Megan assumed I was doing another overnight shift, I didn't tell her I'd finished my job early. I didn't even plan to go home. But something, curiosity, instinct, maybe some twisted form of closure pulled me back to the apartment one last time. I parked down the block and walked the rest of the way. Our place was lit up, music pulsing through the windows. Laughter spilled out onto the street before I even reached the door. At first, I thought Megan had friends over again. But when I stepped inside, it was a full-blown party. Strangers, complete strangers, were drinking my whiskey, smoking on the balcony, dancing in the living room. Someone had moved my framed photos off the mantel to make room for a soundbar. My grandfather's watch, once displayed proudly in a case, was gone. I scanned the room until I saw her. Megan, barefoot and tipsy, wearing a designer dress I'd never seen before, draped across a guy's lap, not touching him but close enough, laughing at whatever nonsense he was whispering in her ear. She looked relaxed, free, like I'd never existed. When our eyes finally met, she didn't flinch. "Oh, hey, babe," she said, as if I'd just returned with snacks from the corner store. "Didn't know you were coming home?" She didn't even stand up. I didn't say a word. I walked past her, straight to the bedroom, and shut the door behind me. Inside, my drawers had been rifled through, clothes tossed. My cologne was missing, the toolbox gone. I sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the wall while the bass thumped in the other room. That was it. The moment something inside me cracked, clean in two. She hadn't just spent my money. She'd erased me from my own life. The next morning, before the sun even came up, I was gone. I didn't slam doors. I didn't yell. I didn't leave a dramatic letter filled with accusations. Just a simple note taped to the bathroom mirror in my handwriting. "Enjoy the vacation. You've earned it." I dropped the keys on the kitchen counter and walked out. That was the last time I stepped foot in that apartment. By noon. The lease termination notice had been emailed to the landlord, effective immediately. I had the legal right, my name was the only one on the contract. Megan had no standing to stop it. I even scheduled a professional cleaner to sweep through the place the next day. No trace. No mess. No warning? The joint bank account? I emptied it before she even woke up. Legally, it was all income I earned. She hadn't contributed a cent. I closed the account completely. Credit cards? Canceled. The car lease that she used? Returned early. Penalty paid in cash from my new account. I blocked her on everything: phone, email, socials. I even deleted my old accounts and started fresh. No trail. No loose ends, she called once from an unknown number. I let it ring. Then came the texts. Where the hell are you? Is this a joke? Come home right now. This isn't funny. I didn't respond. Instead, I sat in my new studio apartment, legs crossed on the floor, surrounded by boxes of only my things. I cracked open a cold beer and turned my phone off. She had taken my money, my time, and nearly my identity. But now, I had taken everything back, and as far as she was concerned, I no longer existed. It didn't take long for the fallout to reach me, even from a distance. Mutual friends started texting me within days. Screenshots, stories. Megan was unraveling, apparently. She came home that afternoon to find the apartment half empty and the locks changed. She thought it was a prank at first. But when her card got declined at brunch and her Uber account locked her out, she finally realized Di wasn't just gone. I'd cut the power to her entire life. She tried playing the victim, told everyone I was unstable, that I must be having some kind of mental breakdown, but people knew me. Quiet, hardworking, always steady. Her story didn't stick. A friend of hers, a girl I never liked much, posted a TikTok about how Can had abused her husband financially and bragged about using his paycheck like an allowance. Strangers dragged her for the shopping sprees, the secret trips, the entitlement. One of Megan's so-called best friends DM'd me a week later, just so you know. She told us all you were too dumb to handle money, that she deserved more. I never bought it. Glad you got out. Even her parents, who'd always looked down on me, sided with silence. I found out she begged them to help her pay rent. They refused. Said you made your bed. Her dad even emailed me to apologize for never seeing what I put up with. The apartment was reclaimed by the landlord. I heard she crashed on a friend's couch for a while. Tried getting into influencer brand deals, using her trauma story. That flopped too. She tried calling from a burner once. I let it go to voicemail. Her voice cracked as she whispered, "Please, just talk to me." But I didn't need closure. I already had it. I had peace. The official paperwork arrived 2 weeks later. I filed for divorce through my lawyer. Clean, simple, and airtight. Megan tried to contest it at first, probably thinking she could squeeze out some kind of settlement. But my attorney had built a file so ironclad, she didn't stand a chance. We had proof of her spending. Screenshots of her vacations, even logs of the forged loan application. The moment her lawyer saw the evidence, the tone of their emails shifted. Suddenly it was, "We'd like to resolve this amicably instead of threats and entitlement." There would be no alimony, no split of the assets. Megan hadn't contributed $1. The savings, the lease, the furniture, the every piece of it could be tracked back to me. She had no claim. And when the forged loan came up, her lawyer strongly advised her to walk away without a fight, quietly, before it turned into something worse. We signed everything electronically. No courtroom drama. Just a PDF and a few e-signatures. It was over in a matter of days. I didn't feel triumphant. Not exactly. It wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about escape. About closure. The kind that doesn't come with screaming matches or slammed doors. But with silence and certainty, I got a final text the day the divorce was finalized. Just one line, "You really left me with nothing." She was right. She'd spent years emptying my life while smiling to my face. And in the end, I gave her what she gave me: nothing. I deleted the message and blocked the number. There would be no final phone call. No one last conversation. She didn't get to narrate this ending because for the first time in years, I was the one writing it. It's been 8 months since I walked out of that apartment and never looked back. I live in a small one-bedroom now. Nothing fancy, worn hardwood floors, a slightly crooked window shade, and a view of a gas station across the street. But it's mine. Every mug in the cupboard, every dollar in the drawer, every hour of peace I earned it. I sleep better now. No more phantom footsteps in the hall while I'm trying to nap after a double. No more walking on eggshells or pretending not to notice when my bank account mysteriously dips. No more worrying if my silence is being taken as permission. I even started dating again. Carefully, slowly. She's kind, independent. The type to split the bill and insist on buying her own coffee. The first time I told her about Megan, she didn't flinch or pity me. Just nodded and said, "Well, you're not that guy anymore." And maybe I'm not. Sometimes I still catch myself bracing for impact, expecting betrayal, waiting for someone to take what I've built. But then I remember I already survived the worst part. I already burned the house down and walked through the ashes. I don't check up on Megan. Don't stalk her socials. Don't ask mutual friends for updates. She doesn't exist in my world anymore. That chapter's over. The thing about hitting rock bottom is, if you survive it, you build different the next time. Stronger, quieter, smarter. She spent my savings on cocktails and selfies. I spent my silence rebuilding a life she'll never touch again. And that right there is the sweetest part, because she thought I'd always be the man who worked himself to death for her dreams. She never imagined I'd be the one who disappeared and left her life in ruins.